Hello guys, in this video we will talk about Express error handling. Express comes with a default error handler, and it is important to ensure that Express catches all errors that may occur while running route handlers and middleware. When working in Express, keep in mind the following points. Express catches and processes synchronous errors out of the box. If you pass asynchronous errors to next function, Express will handle them. Starting with Express 5, which is currently in a beta version, route handlers and middleware that return a promise will call next with a value and automatically when they reject or throw an error. When using promises, you can pass next to .catch. Although Express comes with a default error handler, it is a good idea to write your own custom error handler. In your custom error handler, you must delegate to the default Express error handler when the headers have already been sent to the client. In your custom error handler, you can choose different ways of handling errors depending on which type an error is. For example, joy errors can be handled differently than Axios errors. Custom error handler is a good place to log and/or report the errors. For example, you can report the errors to Sentry. Don't just rely on your custom and Express default error handlers. If you know an error may occur, catch it, process, and send the response back to the user. Now let's take a look at some code. In the project that we created in the last video, I added a few routes to test errors. So the first route is API errors sync, and we're throwing a synchronous error. So according to Express documentation, this error should be handled automatically. There is another route that has API errors async, so we're reading file asynchronously, and if there is an error, we're passing it to the next. This error should be handled automatically as well. This route has a promise that it's being rejected with an error, and again, we're passing next to the catch. So we are expecting default error handler to process the error. In this instance, or here in this route, we're using await on the promise, and then when we're rejecting the promise, we're using try and catch, and when we catch error, we're passing it to the next. Currently, we are on Express 4.18 because Express 5 is still in the beta version. So when there is going to be Express 5, we really don't need to have this try catch block, right? Express will supposedly handle this error the same way it was handling the synchronous error. But for now, since we're on Express 4, we need to wrap it in a try catch. Finally, we have a route that has handled error, right? Because sometimes we need to have multiple calls. First, we need to make a call to a third-party API service, and with that data, we will need to update records in the database. So we're simulating those with the promises, and API service may not be very resilient and reliable, so we are expecting it to sometimes fail. And when promise gets rejected, right, we can have our try catch error and not delegate it to default error handler and just handle it ourselves, right? If needed, we can also log this error, and then we can return a message, custom error message to the user. In API test HTTP file, I created calls to test those errors, right? And let's start our application and test those errors. So first one is a synchronous error, right? We got this error logged out, and we got the response, and this is basically telling us this error. Since we're in a development, all right, so we are getting returned the full error. However, if we switch to a production, if we go and try the synchronous error again, it will send us, or the users only, that there is internal server error, but it's not going to send any more information about this error. However, we're still going to have the log of this error, and that's the difference how internal error handler handles production environment versus development environment. All right, let's go ahead and switch it back to the development and continue testing our endpoints. All right, next up is async error. So let's try that. And we can see no such file exists, right? So this is the error we're getting, and it's getting handled as well. Now let's try the promise. Okay, async await error, right? And now we can try the await error, right? Let's hit that one. Now let's try to hit the promise. Okay, so and then we got async await error from the promise. Now we can try and hit the await, right? Same here, error got handled and we get an async await error right here. So if we, for example, go and update our code right here where we don't send the catch statement, we don't send the next here and try to go and hit the endpoint, we can see that our application crashes, right? So error is not handled correctly. So let's go back, put the catch back, save, and hit it again. And now the error is handled. And finally, let's take a look at the handled error, right? We can click hit, and then we got a custom message here. We don't have any logging because we didn't log, and it says that unable to update entry, no record found. So our custom code kicked in and send response back to the user. As I mentioned before, it is a good idea to create your own custom error handler, right? Let's create a folder called middleware in the source folder of our project and create errorhandler.ts, right? Let's start writing it out. So we're going to do some imports from Express. We're creating a middleware function that will take error, request, response, and the next. So here just going to be pay attention that it has error besides request, response, and next. So now we need to check if headers are already sent, and if they are, we're going to delegate error to the Express default error handler. So next, we can check if the environment is development. If so, we can also delegate it to default error handler because default error handler does a good job logging and sending response, and in development, we can actually check it. However, if we are in production or any other environment, we can log our error, or maybe we can report it. We can set the status of 500 and then respond back to the user with an error that has a message, or we can say, just if there is no message, we can say an error occurred. In order to use our custom error handler, we needed to put it at the bottom of server.ts file, right, before we returning an app. Right, and all we need to do is say app use error handler and don't forget to import it. Now let's try to test. All right, we'll open API.test file and try to hit those error endpoints again. And what happened, nothing really changed, because in our custom error handler, when we are in development environment, we still delegating the errors to the Express default error handler, because it knows really well how to display those errors, return to us or log them. So let's go ahead and update the environment to be production. Okay, let's go ahead and restart the server. So now if we hit one of those errors endpoint, right, now we're going to have a sync error message, right? Or if we hit one of the promises, we're going to have async await error. So we customly handle and return this error. And this is how you handle errors in Express. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.